Looking ahead to the week ahead, lots of tech earnings coming Wednesday and Thursday. Big meeting between the US and Chinese leader coming up on Thursday too. Sandwiched in between somewhere, a Federal Reserve decision that we're all taking for granted. Mike McKee, just an assumption they cut interest rates again and it's easy sailing, except you and I both know it's different. That committee, Mike, how difficult will it be for the Chairman Powell to communicate anything beyond the October decision?
Oh, it's going to be very difficult because the government shutdown has lasted so long now. We're really in danger of losing the data we would have gotten for October, and who knows what's going to happen in November. They don't meet after a Wednesday until the 10th of December. But I do have a surprise for you this morning, something they can hang their hat on a little bit. We have some data. The Chicago Fed puts together a real-time unemployment forecast. They do use some of the government data in it, but since they haven't got it, they're estimating. And they say in October we would have had an unemployment rate of 4.35%. September would have been 4.34%, so no real difference. They'll update this on November 6th, which is the day before we would get the the payroll numbers for October if they were coming out. But their view is we're not seeing a real deterioration in the labor market. You do mention that Wednesday is the Fed meeting. We have a very light data week because all these data points have been canceled. So you can pretty much focus, except for Wednesday, on all the tech earnings. We do get consumer confidence. And jobless claims, we get now the raw data, 4 o'clock on Thursday afternoons. We adjusted for you. By Friday morning, we'll have a pretty good idea of what jobless claims are. And as we saw last week, they're not really changing the picture either. And here's one bit of good news, maybe. Omer Sharif, he's at Inflation Insights. He's looked at the possibility of an October CPI report if the shutdown ends within the first week of November. He says that BLS suggests they need only about 2.5% of their sample to get a reasonable estimate for the CPI. They'll have gasoline, cars, wireless phones data already sent in by the private sector, some for apparel, furnishings, and prescription drugs. And they can go call up landlords, the big landlords, and ask them, what were you charging? Same with insurance. So he thinks there's a possibility, you can keep your fingers crossed, that the Fed will have some sort of price data to use before the next meeting. Mike,
just remind us, when's the survey week for payrolls? When do things get messy if we miss that?
Survey week is the week that the week that includes the payroll that would be on the 12th of the month. So we've well past that, but a lot of that data, almost all of it, comes in now from electronic sources. So we can get the total number of jobs once there's somebody to put that out. It's the unemployment number that's difficult to get because that's a telephone survey. And the longer you go without doing it, the more you get into memory bias and things like that. So there's a possibility we get half of that report.
And Mike, I'd given up on October. I was thinking about November. Mike, thank you. Mike McKee there. Yeah, I think we've all given up on October, haven't we?
I mean, honestly, how difficult the situation is that we are completely blind, and we are going to be completely blind for at least 1 month, if not 2, if not 3. You are right. How likely is it that we're going to get data in any kind of clean sense through the end of the year? So year over, like you said.
Confirmation bias. It's difficult to get people to change their priors when we don't have the data. And that's why the divisions of the Federal Reserve aren't going to resolve themselves anytime soon.
It's equally difficult because people are looking at earnings to try to fill the gap. And we keep saying the market is not the economy. These big companies are not necessarily the Main Street classic struggle that you're seeing in some of the private asset markets, which have seen pockets of weakness, not necessarily systemic, but pockets. I mean, that to me is really the key question. How much are people flying blind and going with just confirmation bias?
I'm joking about year over, just a little bit, of course.
Are you?
No September jobs report, no October jobs report. It looks like, based on what you're telling us about what's going on down in Washington, D.C. Terry Haynes was on the programme earlier this morning, and he said end of November's when the shutdown ends, so maybe no November jobs report either. So we're waiting for how much longer before we get this data?
I mean, weeks, if not months, definitely, when it comes to the data. Weeks, if not months. But Mike McKee's point there, someone talking about the fact that we can maybe get somewhat of a print just based off a 2.5% sample, that maybe speaks to maybe we need to have better data collection.
It's going to raise obvious questions. Omar does fantastic work, by the way, on the inflation story.